the idea of Breedr is really to use data to enable productivity gains to be made all the way along the beef supply chain. And we create a cycle with the data so that we've got data flowing all the way down to the processor and then back up to the producer, so that we can use that data to then inform breeding decisions, and emphasize other performance traits. So that's really what we're trying to do here. We think it's a pretty easy to use system, but of course it's it's easy for me to say. It's really up to each of you and your businesses to figure out whether this is something which fits in with other things that you're doing, other systems that you may already have, or if you're interested in engaging in a new system. But we think it's pretty straightforward and pretty affordable, and I think it offers some help. And when Vaughan invited us to speak to you, it was in the context of a lot of the members, he said, were interested in you producing what you think is a high value product, and wanting to make sure that value is reflected all the way along the supply chain, and you're getting properly rewarded for what you're doing, and maybe also are better able to show what you're capable of doing down to the distributor, down to the food service channel, down to the food retail channel, etc., so that that's properly reflected there. So maybe, Jess, if you can just move on one slide, I'll just sort of talk you through what are really the sort of two main elements of the Breedr system. We have a farm management system, a farm management data system. It's an app-based system. It's pretty straightforward. You load data on an individual animal basis, and you track those animals and with the data that goes with them all the way through the supply chain. There's kind of two components to the data management piece. There's the loading and the tracking of individual animals, and then there's also an analytical piece that we can do, we can help you do, to kind of tease out where there are performance gaps or where you can make performance improvements. The system is designed to work in supply chains as well, so that we link up that data flow all the way down to the processor, and that we get the data coming back from the processor back up at the cow-calf level to inform breeding decisions, and also to help with other performance traits that you're trying to emphasize. So it's kind of those two components which really make the system work. And our experience has been, and we're a pretty young company. We've been set up for just a bit over 5 years, but our experience has been that those who use the system, both at the processor end, those who are pulling data through along with the livestock that they have, and those producers who are sending the animals and the data down to the processor, both find that it adds value. We've had success in a couple of areas. We've been operating initially in the UK market, where we started in about 2019. We moved over to the US in 2022, and we've just been operating in Australia for probably just formally for a couple of months since the first part of this year, but informally we've had a couple of pilot projects going for a year or two now. But what we found in all of that experience is it's the combination of these two pieces, based on individual animal and tracking of individual animals, that really seems to make a difference, and is a little bit different to some of the other systems that are out there, maybe some that you're using at the moment, or others that are out there in the marketplace as well. Jess, if we can move on one slide. So we talk about a full circle data flow. This is this sort of cycle where we've got data captured here. We're just showing that on the left-hand side here, on farm, data management happening there. Easy to upload data, easy to track what's happening. The idea is that you can add data through everything that happens to those individual animals, whether you're operating cow-calf and breeding operations, even for seed stock operations as well. We've found some success there with other breed societies in the US. And also with backgrounders as well, who are taking some of those young animals through, and feeders as well, who are getting them through to finishing weights. The data analytical capabilities that we have allow you to build some supply prediction, allow you to focus on sustainability if that's important to you, but really to focus on how the data informs the performance of the young animals and as they're growing, and what you can do to what the data allows you to do there. Still, there's nothing automated in terms of management. The power is in the hands of you guys as farm managers to do whatever you want to do. The data is simply there to inform the decisions that you're making. And, we look at data that we can aggregate, we can look at individual animals, we can aggregate for a certain mob, we can look across the whole of the farm, we can look across multiple locations as well. The app is capable of being scaled depending on whatever size of operation you have. So there's this capability here, this analytical capability as well. And that we sort of show that at the top of the screen in the middle there. On the right-hand side, we go to the processor. They might be running branded programs. They might be selling into retail or into food service. And what we find is that, the data enables them to get more consistency in terms of the quality. If they're targeting high quality or just in the middle of the ballpark there, it's about consistency, and the data really helps to ensure that you've got, they've got processors have got a better idea of what's coming to them, and that helps with the distribution job that they have. And then we have the data coming back to producers rather, which we're showing in the green down at the bottom of this slide here, where you've got detailed information about carcasses. That's nothing special. I mean, you can get that from any processor today, but the difference that we like to think we're making here is that, we're joining up the whole of the supply chain. So that data flow goes back to the cow-calf producer or even to the seed stock producer, so that, they are also able to benefit from seeing the final carcass conformation and carcass quality, etc. So kind of at a high level, that's really what the system is like. That's what it's based on. And I might hand over to you, Jess, to sort of talk a little bit more about the elements of what we do on farm with data management.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. And a really good overview. So I suppose honing in on that first bit, the farm data management, I suppose from a practical level, the system itself is able to, as Justin said, individually scan every animal. The point of difference with this system is it's all with you on your phone and it's all instantaneous. So as soon as you scan an animal onto the system, it's there. You don't have to go and link up to the cloud and then sync it and then go from there. So as soon as it's on your tablet or phone, it's also on your computer at home. So that analytics goes all the way through. In terms of hardware, it's quite adaptable to what we've got. We really like working with TrueTest. It links via Bluetooth. So on your phone, you can go and scan an animal with a wand and it directly links with that. The same with scales. The scales directly link with your phone or tablet as you're in yards or out in the paddock. As Justin has indicated, we're able to I suppose inventory is a really good part of what we're able to do, knowing what's where at what time, mapping of the farm, figuring out what management groups you've got. We can incorporate all of that, as well as the genetic detail EBVs come straight into it as well. I suppose practically it's quick and it's simple. The next slide just shows how simple it is with this little small video.
Sorry about the colour of these animals.
As you can see, the information that comes up there, you can have a look at anything within the animal itself. But you can also have your EBVs sitting there ready to go. If you're doing AI, you can have that selection all organized. You can create drafts and put specific EBVs up there that you might be managing with. So as we said, it's everything. It's from your phone, it's from your tablet, and it's quick and it's easy to use. So that's just a bit about the hardware and the physical way to use it. I think where it comes into itself is that the reports and the mapping and specifically this next one, you can see it starts to bring everything together. As you accumulate information, you start to get that the history of the animal. So this is the pedigree. You're able to map and link all of these animals together. Putting your genetics and your pedigree together, it gives you great tools to be able to make some decisions as you go ahead. In terms of reporting, a few that, oh, apologies, we'll reload. Okay, slideshow. Technical issues, sorry. We'll zoom in instead. So this here, as you can see, probably can't see all that well, but what this shows is when you're able to record the sire and dam and that accumulation of data as it goes forward, this is an average daily gain of the offspring from those recorded sires going forward. So the top one here, it's recording an average daily gain. This is in pounds, but over 1.5. Whereas this sire here at the bottom is 0.4 kilos, 0.4 pounds a day. That's really going to show which sires are actually making quite a difference within your herd. So simple data recording from sires is going to start to bring out quite a lot of data that can be useful for you. Moving on, so the carcass performance reports, as Justin said, being able to link that carcass data and bring it back in and actually put it against the animals, what you get to see is the quality coming out as well as the volume. So this is grading by sire. So the progeny of this sire's animals is the quality percentage is coming out. Obviously, this is in American, so we've got prime, choice, select. So you start to see who is actually performing better for you. As with the previous slide, you've got average daily gain, but now you've got quality as well. So being able to overlay those two values is going to start to help make some pretty quick decisions on farm.
And this also helps you in terms of, you know, whatever you're targeting in your own breeding programs and your own production programs. I mean, you know, for some people, it's the average daily gain or growth that's most important. It's about getting the kilos there and getting them off. This is really about the quality, and there are different ways of assessing quality. We've got the grading percentages there by sire, but, you know, we also get on the right-hand edge of this slide, you can also see the marbling scores, for example. So, you know, it's a question of what you're targeting, but the data that comes back sort of allows you to easily see. Here we're linking it back to individual sires. Just to anonymize the data here, we've sort of blacked out all the sire names there, but on the very left-hand edge. But I mean, otherwise, you know, it's kind of a question of, okay, how does it grade and what's the marbling score? And in the next round of breeding, you might not go back to the same sire because, of course, things are moving on with the breeding programs, etc. But it's about identifying those traits which you want to target, and then saying, okay, what are the traits that I should be looking at, and how have those traits continued to develop for the next round of breeding? So, you know, there's, I mean, the average age at harvest, I mean, that's obviously linked to the average lifetime daily gain as well. But, you know, they're just different attributes that you can target. And on this slide, there's already a lot of data on there, but these are just some of the things that we've pulled out. It's all about what you get back from the processor, and then how you're able to bring that into your operation to sort of inform what you want to do the next time around.
Absolutely. I suppose another functionality of the program itself is looking at supply and the predictive capabilities of, as it says, supply chain. So that's in terms of what Justin was saying before, that full circle supply chain, and looking at as an overview. Justin, you might want to talk to this a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're managing a herd. It depends on the size, of course, but I mean, as the animals are growing, you're really wanting to look at, okay, where are they going to be and when? And again, this is a forecasting tool that takes into account the average daily gain that's been measured, which of course depends on you being able to run cattle over a wayhead at some stage or at different stages during their life. But you know, these are the things that sort of help to inform the decision making that you have as an operator, and also help you to get closer to that idea of, okay, if I'm going to deliver into a program, then I need to be able to demonstrate that I've got the capability to deliver a certain quantity as well. So this is kind of part of what I think is needed to be an attractive supply chain to a processor who's, you know, going to choose Speckle Park because of the eating characteristics or some other aspect there which is relevant or important to them in their food service or food retail business.
Absolutely.
So as we reflect on, you know, what we've been able to achieve here, I mean, this is very much on the quality aspect here, but this is data that we've used from our experience in the US, and just what we've been able to do in terms of genetic merit scores versus industry averages. And so we're just looking there at the herd that we've had on our system, comparing that to the average for the industry, and the breeder herd is in the dark blue, and the cow calf average is in the light blue. And you can see there, just over those 3 years that we have data, that we've been able to get data, you know, there's been, we think, a really impressive level of gain that's been achieved there. Now, you know, some of that's reflected in efficiency for an operator on farm, lower costs perhaps, better feeding regimes. Some of it's reflected in the value that's created by getting paid more for carcass conformation, carcass quality through the grid as well. So there are different ways of looking at the gains that are being made there. You know, and again, it depends on what you're running your business for, and how you're getting paid. But we think, you know, with the data, the data flow that we're creating here, you can make many years of herd improvement, you know, much faster, just by simply utilising the data that comes back from the processor within this full circle, and utilising that in every breeding decision that you're making. So these are just a selection of some of the supply chains that we've helped to set up. And you know, what we're doing here is that, you know, we have contracts from some of these suppliers. These are mostly in the US and some in the UK, and down on the bottom left there's some work that we've been doing in Australia with Fulton Market Group. So, you know, this is how the system works at its best. When we have an agreement with a processor to source particular animals, we're focusing, in some cases, you can see some big numbers there. Some of them are beef on dairy, some of them are breed related, and some of them are about the production system. You can see on the right-hand side there, NHTC program for Greater Omaha. That's about not using hormones. And then there's a sort of, also for Maya Natural Food there, there's a natural production standard, grass-fed and good agricultural practice standard and certification, which they're aiming for. And so we've got, you know, smaller volumes that are going in there. In some of these cases, you know, we're like the top left there, I mean, we're running all of the cattle for the premium program, which Cavaness has. Cavaness is a second tier beef processor in the US, but second tier in the US is still a very large size. We're working with JBS in the US as well. We're not working with them in Australia at the moment, but we're working with them in the US. So, as we get bigger and we get better and there are more animals on our system, then we're better able to feed into all of these supply chains. And yeah, again, sometimes it's a focus on highest value. Sometimes it's a focus on particular production system attributes. Sometimes it's breed related. So there's a combination of things that we can target. But we're trying to recruit animals onto the software, and that allows us to sort of then help you as producers to get access to different grids and to really play in the area that you think Speckle Park is going to do best in. So I'll just close out on this slide and then we can open up and see if there are any comments or questions. As I said, we're a relatively young company. We're only just getting started here in Australia. We've got this slide's maybe almost a little bit out of date now. We're probably closer to 1.5 million head of cattle on the system in Australia and the UK, but predominantly in the US. There's Angus, there's Red Angus in the US as well, but there are other breeds that we're working with now as well. So there's different cattle that we're working with across our system. We're really focusing on what we call here conception to consumption, data-driven supply chains. We've got that lifetime of animal data. We're looking at supply chain management. And in the US, we're also doing some livestock finance. We're not doing that in Australia at the moment. We may do that in the future, but I think for now, we're seeing that there's enough opportunity for us to just focus on the data and on the supply chain. We see ourselves as really contributing to genetic improvement, progeny validation. We think that the system, the data-driven system, leads to ongoing optimization across the whole of the supply chain. We think we're getting better through that data at making yield predictions, making quality predictions, so total supply predictions, which make us a more interesting counterparty for a processor. And where this is interesting for you or interesting for the processor or for a food retailer, food service company, or even one of the conversations that we've been in this week is with someone who's using raw material as to go into pet food. This company's also very interested in sustainability attributes. We're also able, because we've got lifetime data there, to help them meet their needs around the production efficiency as well as the sustainability tracking. I think ultimately we're looking to build some customized supply chains where we have an off-taker that's looking for particular characteristics, looking for particular quality to feed into certain distribution channels. But, it takes us a little bit of time to get there. And I think the purpose of having this conversation with Speckle Park is to understand, if this is a sort of system that might help to give a little bit more prominence and a little bit more volume, perhaps, to your breed within the market and help to raise some awareness there as well. So perhaps with that, Jess, I don't think there are any more slides here, so maybe we can sort of take the slides down and then just see if there are any comments or questions.
G'day guys, g'day Justin and Jess. Sorry for the late joining to the session, so a bit going on as always. So thank you, Justin and Jess. I know you guys have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to supply chain and data, and to have someone that's on the Global Sustainability Framework Committee, Justin, is a pleasure to have you on the call and present to the group. As we've discussed prior to this time, it's always about the chicken and the egg scenario, and where do you start when it comes to data and integrated supply chains. Speckle Park being around an 18-year-old breed in this market, in Australia in particular, with a lot of good niche opportunities and interest throughout the supply chain across Australia. So the connectivity across the breeder, the commercial producer, and then into the background of feedlotter is really critical to grow that supply chain as we move forward and mature as a breed, isn't it? So we certainly appreciate the opportunity and see where we can go. For the other people on the call, it's really about expressions of interest of where we can work together with data and then really bring it together and bring Breedr, really specific to what Speckle Park's needs are, and get a good working group of members that tweak and make sure Breedr's doing what we need it to do for our everyday lives and make life easier with innovative technology. So it's pretty exciting for me to be able to, get a software in place on my farm that is cost effective and modern and gets me away from some clunky softwares that really connects me not only in my operation potentially, but with my clients is pretty unique in the supply chain. Does anyone else have any questions? Don't need to listen to me. I'm often on meetings and things like that. You can take yourself on mute. There's a fair bit to take in Justin's presentations as well. So if anyone's got any questions, jump in and take yourself off mute and go from there.
Could I ask a question to you? What's the connection, Justin, between your software and that from the abattoirs? What systems do they need and how do they interface to your system?
Yeah, good question, Ian. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on which abattoir you're talking about as to what format the data is going to be in. But ultimately, we're able to pull in the data. We'll be able to pull that in whatever they're using. Most of them, I mean, traditionally, they might have given you a hard copy printout. I think most of them now understand the need to give digital files. And so we haven't found a problem so far in taking on those digital files and getting those into the system. Jess, I don't know if you've got any particular, comment there about systems and etc. But Ian, it's not only at that end that there might be a need to sort of take data from one system into another. There's also at the upstream end there might be other data that's coming at you from somewhere or other. You've got NLIS as well that you've got to work with. So we've got a pretty open architecture, as they call it, in terms of software engineering, where we're able to interact and interface pretty easily with most other systems. It's not perfect. There's a lot of systems out there, but we found it to be pretty easy to do that with most other systems. But Jess, do you have any particular examples that are worth sharing there?
I think just as an overall, the process itself is, as Justin said, they will give you a digital file, and that's able to be uploaded directly into our system. So it's a very simple upload that that can happen direct from the processor.
You'll base that mainly off the MSA, Meat Standards Australia reporting. That'll be one of the most common digital transfers of information, won't it?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's not only that, Vaughan. I mean, there's, MSA's got its own grading system, etc. But, the processor is doing a full scan of the carcass as it goes into the plant. And so there's other things that are being, measured there that are outside the scope of an MSA grading. I mean, MSA grading ultimately is just like one number, but you might be interested in, what the size and conformation is of the fillet or the ribeye or something like that. That might be more interesting for you because of, if you've got an offtake agreement into food service where they're most interested in steaks, you want to know the quality, but you also want to know how much you're getting out of that. And so if you're getting an extra chunk there, because of the breeding program that you've got, then that's actually interesting data. So there's data from an MSA grading, but there's also data that the abattoir is giving, that the abattoir is collecting and can give to you as well. But all of these things need to be negotiated, and I think they're willing to do it, just about making sure the systems work together at the right time.
How do you see, obviously, seed stock producers generally have hardware for weighing, ID of NLS tags, those sort of capabilities, but then connecting you with the commercial producer or clients that the seed stock producers have, how do you see that connection start to evolve? Does it happen quickly, and what role does the seed stock producer have in making sure they're coming on board?
Jess, do you want to speak to that?
Well, I'm not really sure, Vaughan.
It's evolving, I suppose, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's hard to actually say exactly.
Yeah.
I suppose the more data that we can accumulate, the better it's going to be for everyone. And as you say, the seed stock producers always pushing forward to be the best and create the best, and that's going to flow into the commercial as they get the volume going forward. So I think it is, as you say, it's evolving, and yeah.
In our experience in the US, Vaughan, has been that seed stock producers are pretty keen to work with us because, when that full data cycle is working, then that gives them a lot more insight into how their breeding programs are performing over the hooks. Which is ultimately, that's what they're selling, and there's different ways of selling it depending on who you're working with. I mean, some people are only ever going to use the eyeball, to say, okay, that's kind of the bull I want, or whatever, but others are going to look at things differently and be more conscious of the data there and say, okay, well, this is consistently grading out at this area. Of course, not everything is about genetics, but a lot of it is about genetic potential, and just seeing how that gets realised. I mean, that's where we've made some good progress. We'd like to think, but in a way, you kind of have to talk to those seed stock guys to understand what they're getting out of it. But maybe the only comment I can make about that is that we're not losing them off the system. Once they're on the system, they're leaning on our backs to kind of get us out there and doing more, and they're introducing us to who they're selling bulls to, if that's what they're doing. So that's been our experience in the US market.
Mm-hmm. 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 How, Jess, have you worked with the likes of ABRI and connecting obviously we can export out with Excel reports and things like that, so we can make files to registrations and things like that pretty easily. But have you had a chance so far to connect with the likes of ABRI to make that process a little bit easier or not?
Well, I suppose we have discussed this before, obviously, but in terms of that, I've looked. Yes, I've connected with them, but I've also looked internally at how we can make that process really quite easy. So in terms of API, that's something that's an ongoing process that we're starting with the likes of NLIS to connect with them and make the movements easy from the system itself. ABRI is next on the list, but at the same time, with in terms of ABRI and reports and things like that, what we're able to do is specific reporting that will allow the data required for those Excel files that need to be uploaded, etc., to be extracted from the data in our system. And we've got a quick way to get around that until there's an API that could work in that instance.
Yeah, so you could make a template that's suited, and then you just click the button and put in a date between dates and generate a file for whatever reason it might be. And
these are the specific animals. For example, they're the autumn drop calves that I need to register. That report's done. That gets sent off easily.
Or weights or whatever breed plan data you might be submitting and that sort of stuff. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Anyone else? There's only a few. There's a few dropped off the call already, so they've seen it. So there's a few others. Ian, Jamie, Ron, Kent are on the call. So whether you've got anything else to ask a question, a very different look at a software that's I'm sure if we needed to, we could set up a live session with Jess and go through the system a little bit more. And this is really just about an expressions of interest to see what level of interest was out there for Breedr in our membership. So I see Kent's taking himself off mute. So
having just ended recorded all my calves, have to take a photo and put on my phone, write down all your data. It's just a bloody nightmare.
Yes.
The only thing I don't do is I don't put an NLIS tag in them at that age.
Okay.
Can you record them with just their, like the W1
The visual?
Yeah. For that at the moment, and then add your NLIS down the track?
Absolutely. So the visual, it creates an animal. Whether or not you have an NLIS track to it at that stage, it doesn't matter. You can come back and load up your wand, scan it, and it goes, it connects to that animal.
Yeah.
So.
And then you obviously you'll be able to put that in at birth.
Yep.
And start it right from scratch.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can record phenotypic data, notes against it as well, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's very capable of doing that.
Yeah.
With some of the programs like the Greenham Sustainability Program, we've seen they have in that program, if you get to tier 2, you've got to be using a farm management software. And it tracks movements in paddocks and like competitors like AgriWeb. I assume you've got that mapping capability and stock control.
We certainly do.
I haven't really looked at it.
That's fair. So the mapping capability, it's all there, except when you get to the point of utilizing it, you actually go back to and go, well, hang on, I've got all these locations and I know where they are. I don't actually need to look at the map because I know the map up here. So you get into looking at the list and seeing what animals are in what stage, and you can go, right, I'm just going to move this whole location into A and B. So yes, we've got groups which you can do, for example, 2025 drop autumn calves, and then you've got your main herd or however you want to manage that, but then your locations on the farm is really good. The other one is tags, so you can tag it, tag an animal with 4 different color tags, and it might be high genomic value, or she's a cull for next season, or however you want to actually tag her, so that him, whatever, you can manage it in that way as well on an individual animal level.
Yes, yeah, whatever you want to do it. Yeah.
You mentioned genomics there. I mean, that's another area where we're actively working with genomic testing. So, if people are running, I mean, it depends on everyone's operation, obviously, but that sort of stuff we want to work with as well, right? To get all of that information in there, because the more information that's on the system, then the better you're able to dissect it and sort of figure out what the value is. You don't have to do all of these things. I mean, it's kind of all up to the operator as to how deeply they want to go into it. You can do these things, I guess, is the point that we're making. The system's pretty flexible, range of capabilities there. Kind of needs to be driven a little bit by the user as to where their comfort is around, the use of technology, and where their appetite is for, looking at the slicing and dicing the data that they have on the herd in different ways, or the mob, or whatever it is. I mean, we haven't talked about it today, and again, it sort of depends a little bit on everyone's operations, but we also have the capability of doing benchmarking there. If you've got multiple locations or even multiple mobs, you're able to look at them and compare them and sort of see how they're performing differently. It doesn't tell you why they're performing differently necessarily, but you might know what some of the differences are to help you kind of figure out, okay, just things that you're not able to take in with the eye, that the data will sort of tell you what's really happening there.
I think I've definitely spoken to you, Jess, in the past. I think a really cool thing to look at with a young society like Speckle Park is you often see conversations on social media around what should be my weaning weight target be, and you've got new people to the breeder family and the new people to seed stock business or even commercial. So the ability to understand and information transfer, am I hitting benchmarks comparable to my area, comparable to herd sizes, my size? What do those numbers and targets look like? Am I on track or am I falling behind? Not that you know who you're comparing your data to, but you're comparing to industry, particularly maybe in your region in a good or bad season. I think it's really, really helpful information to be able to show that in real time is really good information, isn't it? So,
well, Vaughan, I mean, I think that's a sort of thing that we're able to do. If you've got if there's, you know, if you as a society sort of say, okay, well, this is something which is valuable to everyone, you know, people can just decide what sort of data they want to share, and then we can come back and do some of that reporting across, you know, for the Breed Society, and just, you know, if there's enough data there, and there needs to be enough to kind of help to protect everyone's identity. I don't think that's what people want to be sharing, but, you know, some of the data there to kind of give people an idea on, you know, some of these metrics that are important to you. You know, these are sorts of things that we'd be open-minded about exploring with you guys as a group.
Yeah. As far as you said about permission and stuff, getting access once you've got things up and running around processor data or whoever data, sharing that information, is it difficult in that process? Like, it's quite a complex web of who's involved in a supply chain software, and I assume that's part of signing up, but is it difficult?
I suppose it depends on what it is as to what would be available to share. There are, as we say, this is software that does go from the farm. Then you're able to track it through the background of the feedlot and the processor, and the visibility over in all of those places is very different. So there will be no visibility of what's going on farm as to the other end of the thing, under the end of the chain. But that being said, in between farmers, it's something to discuss on anyway. I'm not exactly sure on how easy it will be, but it's something that has been available in other instances. So it's something that could be discussed for sure.
It's generally pretty easy to get once you've got the permission, away you go, and it's not a hard task, but it's something you have to go through in the process of doing it, isn't it? So,
and we're very careful about making sure that everything's everyone's individualized, everyone's safe, and no extra data needs to be shared, etc. So we're just very cautious about the process as well.
Our experience, Vaughan, is that, you know, people will share what they see value in. And, you know, if you like, we're not asking people to share data just for the sake of it. We're trying to join up the whole of the supply chain so everyone can see differences in performance, and everyone can, you know, benefit from that. And I think in that situation, people go, yeah, okay, I get it. I want to get that data back. So I understand that I've got to share something. You know, if I'm backgrounding, you know, I've got to share something, or if I'm just finishing or whatever, I've got to share things in order to get that. And you know, when we build these supply chains, I mean, that's also part of, you know, the prices that are available in the supply chain for better quality. You know, it depends on having that data that comes with it, because it may be that the person that's selling some of that meat wants to be able to talk about particular attributes there, and they're going to pay for that. But you know, they need to be able to prove some of those attributes as well, just depending on what system. I mean, I guess organic is like an extreme example of that. I don't want to recommend that, but you know, that's kind of a classic example of, you know, you've got to share data because everyone sees that that's the system that they're part of, and they've made a commitment to that. I think here with Speckle Park, we're probably talking more about quality and just wanting to understand quality and get fairly paid for the quality that we're delivering. So it's just about those attributes which are going to contribute to quality and help to get more animals grading out into the sweet spot, whatever that happens to be, but the sweet spot that the processor and that processor's customer is interested in.
I think there's a lot of it. I mean, in other things we've done, Justin, there's a lot of appetite for the person that breeds the calf but then sells it, but also wants to engage with how it performed right through to the end. So typically in history, once we sell the calf and load it on a truck and it goes to market, we don't know much more unless we really try to spend a lot of time and effort and work. We don't get the opportunity to see how it's performed. But as you know, with the beef on dairy, there's a big appetite for producers to be able to stay in tune with how they're performing, and if they need to adjust, they will. And I think it's exactly the same with cow-calf operations and bull breeders and everything, to be completely connected with their supply chain to understand how they're performing or not performing. And as particularly in Speckle Park, when you've still got to build more accuracy into breed plan, watching or comparing breed plan to raw data in average daily gain in sire groups is extremely beneficial to be able to make a more calculated decision, isn't it? So I think it's this gives you the ability to do some of those things.
Yeah, we think so, and I think that's this is why we're having the conversation, right? Because you guys are interested in this, and we think we've got a system that can help you. And I think you put it well before, Vaughan. There's a sort of chicken and egg thing here. We need a little bit of volume to help us get the processors interested. Once that volume is there and we can start talking about the quality, it becomes more we become more relevant to the processors. And we need a processor that's also interested in taking this through and is going to reward you for the quality that you're delivering, that Speckle Park producers are delivering.
And I see you took yourself off mute there before.
I was going to mention that one day when we have a commercial register, I would think that you wouldn't be turning your pedigree stock into hamburgers. So if you have a commercial register, what you would then be able to do is have a look at the base animals, whether it's be an Angus or a dairy mix or something else, and then work out as you go along through the food chain, as you go along through the processing chain and the growth chain, which one has actually performed better. Whether you should have actually, Murray Greys are better than Angus as the base animal when you cross that with a Speckle Park pedigree bull and so forth, because you could have this system as a source of data for working out what actually can be best, and then you could almost market it to your end users. I'm thinking that this could be useful for that purpose.
100%. Yeah. I mean, the critical part with commercial register is the concept's very good, but you've got to then get people that generating the data, so capturing it on farm easily, and then getting it to be able to transfer it to the crossbred analysis at breed plan easily. And if it can do it easily, then people are more inclined to do it, aren't they? So that's the important part, but to be connected with software that is really up to modern and can have the capability that we're looking for.
If this software can be used as your register for accreditation and biosecurity, you can actually skin a couple of birds with one stone.
Correct. Yep. And that probably, I was thinking about, on the website you've got, Justin, it talks about the emissions reductions and it's got some figures on there. How does the likes of that figure come about in Breedr software?
I mean, I think what we're talking about there is I think we might have some figures there about beef on dairy and how that system tends to perform. So there are some advantages there about, just slightly younger animals at finishing weight there, and that might be based on that and some generic stuff. I mean, we're really focused on helping to, maximize productivity here. So everything that you do to shorten that process can be translated into, if you've got an average, and that's what the whole of Australia is based on right at the moment, one average for most of Australia. It's broken down a little bit more than that, but if you've got individual data, it can be helpful there. The Breedr software isn't doing those calculations necessarily for you. It's got the information that can be taken by a Ruminati or someone like that and then translated into a tons of carbon dioxide equivalent sort of figure. And for some people that's interesting and relevant. For some people, depending on who they're banking with, banks might be asking for some of that information. Certain processors are asking for it if you're in a particular program. So it's kind of one of those things, Vaughan, that you can go down that path if that's what you want to do. And ultimately maybe Speckle Park wants to sort of talk about some of the attributes there about, about efficiency or something like that, you've got in terms of average daily gain, where that they exist on, based on averages, that might also be interesting. I know some others have sort of looked at those kind of metrics and saying, okay, we think this is a marketable trait, because rumination, I mean, that's what drives the whole system, right? If you get better at rumination, then you've got lower emissions and kind of, you've got this sustainability benefit, but it's not, you're paying for it just out of the stuff that you invest in every day of the week. How do I get better at this? You've just got a secondary benefit there that doesn't have an additional cost, because you're just measuring something which may be seen as a benefit by others in the market.
Yeah, and in recent times, there's been a really good talk across the membership around how the doing ability of Speckle Park cows in a drought conditions, and it's very difficult to prove it. You have it anecdotally because you've done it as a producer and you've experienced it, and you've got various breed types on farm maybe, and the only way you can really sort of calculate figures around cost of carry is collecting data, submitting, how much dry matter you're putting in, all those sort of things. And you could do that quite well across a purebred base of breeders, across multiple regions. But the key is to be able to do it with software, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to do it pretty easily and get the data capture done pretty simply, because it's a question of what the value is and how much you want to invest to get that data. But I think working with somebody like a Ruminati, and I don't know if people are familiar with them, but it's another pretty simple software that those guys are just pretty clever at how they're able to translate data that you're collecting anyway about what activities on farm. They're able to translate that into an emissions number for you. So I think that's kind of the combo there that you'd probably be looking for more.
Yeah. All right. It's been going for a little while. I'm sure if anyone else is on the call got questions, you can reach out to myself. Phone number and emails on the Speckle Park website. I'm certainly happy to connect you to Justin and Jess if you need be, and we'll be sharing this across the membership as well. And I think there's a place in the next month or so, the subcommittees are going to have a joint meeting, bring everyone together, and that's probably another opportunity for you guys to showcase what you guys do and let everyone know the opportunities that are out there. So really appreciate you guys taking time out of your evening to showcase your product and the capabilities and the possibilities that we could do in partnering with a business to business like yourself. And it's pretty exciting where technology is going to go over the next little while, particularly in the beef industry. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Vaughan. It's been great to catch up, and as you say, we'll be happy to connect again with other opportunities.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Vaughan, and thanks everyone for joining in. It's an exciting point that we're in the industry, right? Technology's there, we're getting better and more comfortable at using it, but technology is just something that opens up opportunity. That's really the way to think about a system like Breedr. We're just trying to help you to open up the opportunity, but it's up to each of you guys in your own operations to say, yeah, this is the sort of thing I want to go for. So I hope that there'll be more opportunities for us to talk and to work together. But over to you guys. We're around, happy to share the slides, happy to answer questions, etc.
Very good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.